Tennessee gets a big win in their case against the NCAA, and it comes way of the U.S. District Judge there out of Tennessee. The judge granted an injunction, which stops the NCAA from enforcing any rules to do with NIL until this investigation is over, basically. So, with that being said, I believe this opens the door for a lot of litigation to come forward from this, not just in Tennessee and Virginia where this was filed, but across the country. I think this is, I mean, I'm no lawyer. I'm no law expert. Okay. That's not my claim to fame by any means. But whenever you put something on the books in that world, in the judicial world, the legislative world, and you set precedents, typically you're going to see other courts follow that precedence more likely than not. Right. So we've got a court now that's kind of paving the way, Tennessee paving the way for the rest of college football to kind of, I think, weasel their way out of some of these rules that the NCAA kind of decides one day or the next if they're going to enforce them or not. So with all that being said, what do you think this means for college football? And is it good or bad, indifferent? What do you think?
Well, I just heard that Greg Byrne, the Alabama AD, just came out and said that this means that NIL plays a role in recruiting from now on. It does open that can of worms, which really doesn't change much. I don't know that any plugged in fan is listening to that and going, "Oh my gosh, the world's going to end in college football." Right?
Yeah.
That's not news. But first of all, this was Greg Byrne probably taking a little jab at the Alabama boosters and saying like, "Hey, we kind of need you guys to help us recruit. You can do that. Just open your wallet up." But also, I think he's also right in saying that, in addressing it publicly and saying that this is what college football has become. What is it? My question is, what is this NCAA versus Tennessee case going to unfold into the future? And are we going to see players becoming employees, which is, it seems like it's predetermined at this point that that's eventually where we're going to go. And I'm anxious. I'm asking you what do you think is going to happen in the future?
Well, I think that there's still a lot that's got to be figured out with this thing, Mason. I mean, we're just at the beginning of all of this stuff. Now, this injunction was a big deal in the fact that it takes all the teeth out of the NCAA's mouth in this situation. So, look, the NCAA has been a very poor representative of this sport. And what I mean by that is the NCAA has shown no leadership. They're inept in controlling these conferences. These conferences are each their own league, and that's why this sport is so unique. I mean, the NFL, you've got 32 teams, and they're all in one league. They're in different divisions and conferences, but you've got one league. And in college football, you've got over 130 teams, and we had five power conferences up until recently, and now all of a sudden it seems like we have two. So we're going to talk later in the show about the Big Ten and the SEC forming an alliance and aligning their views together, and I think it has a lot to do with the NCAA's inept ability to do what's best for the sport or govern the sport in any way. So I think we're just getting more and more towards like a Wild West type situation where we're going to have conferences doing their own thing. I wish we could get some kind of college football commissioner that actually would do something for the sport. And that sounds like the beginning of every like every dictator regime, right? It's like, I wish we had one guy that could just control everything for us. But
I mean, there's a newly inactive head coach that was the winningest coach in college football history that could potentially fill that role. I'm not like, saying anybody in particular, but Nick Saban could do it. So, and I'd be happy. Nick Saban would be a great dictator. I'd love it. I'd live in that world,
He's a lot like a dictator in the fact that he's like 5'3.5", right?
Yep.
And those are the most powerful leaders, bro. Those are the most powerful leaders. They rule with an iron fist.
Well, I think that's why, I'm 5'6", and people say I'm just such a good leader. I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah, they do call you Maison Napoleon. But Maison. I'd just honestly, I mean, I'm ready for somebody to take some control here. And as I said, we're going to talk about the SEC and Big Ten Alliance. Let us know in the comment section what you think this means for college football as a whole. I just think it's another sign of the NCAA losing their grip, and we're just kind of watching the cheese fall right off the cracker for NCAA and their reign on college football. We just saw a court case in West Virginia a few months ago, and this was to do with basketball, but it was same type situation where it was the state of West Virginia filing a complaint in court basically about not allowing these kids to transfer more than one time, and saying that it was unfair, and the court ruled in favor of West Virginia. And ruled against the NCAA there. So we're just seeing this happen more and more. And I think this is just the precipice of it. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really don't want to hear anything about transfer rules when coaches also do not honor their commitments to programs, right? They leave all the time. We're going to talk about that later in the show about all the coaching moves that have occurred as of late, and it is late, but I don't want to hear anything about players not being able to transfer as many times as they want when coaches aren't held to that same standard. And I shouldn't say that. I don't want to hear any coaches complain about it, right? Until they're also, honoring their contracts and their agreements, because it is an agreement, right? It's the same type of agreement that players sign, that coaches sign, and they leave and walk out of their agreements all the time.